Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Animation University. Today we're going to do the hammer test. Now it's a bit of a lead on from the last tutorial, the first tutorial where we worked on perpetual motion, slow in, slow out, and the bouncing ball. This is working off the same worksheet, and we're going to do a very old technique which is called the hammer test. Now this test was, I think, developed by DreamWorks back in the old days when they still worked in 2D. And it's something that's very useful still today because it basically illustrates your ability to move a 3D shape. It illustrates slow in, slow out. It illustrates how to make a 3D shape fall through reality and space. So I brought a little friend to illustrate my point. Now, to an untrained eye, this actually just looks like a stick that I've kept since I was a kid. But to me, this is a hammer. And essentially what we're going to be doing today is making a hammer go from this to that, this to that, this to that, this to that. So basically the idea, if you can slow it down frame by frame, this thing is going really, really slowly and then it falls, gradually picking up inertia and then hits the ground. So in this tutorial, we'll be looking at how a physical demonstration of a hammer falling to the ground, adhering to gravity, will look in 2D animation. Let's have a look. Okay, let's get into this quickly. What we're going to do first off is we're going to grab ourselves basically the arc. It's a trajectory. This is only going to be used as kind of plotting out the path of the fall of this hammer. Now, if you haven't already worked this out, this is the same worksheet that we worked on in the first lesson. So go and download it and you can work along with me. Now, I've nicely placed this grid so we can kind of map out where we're going. Now I'm going to put nodes in here. So I'm going to halve this just like the perpetual motion lesson that we did before. I'm going to halve the top again, like so. And then I'm going to halve that other top again, like so. And I'm going to keep doing that until I have enough frames. So just halving the top portion of it will eventually make a slow in, slow out movement. Now, I can pretty much do a rough. I usually like to start with the handle. There's only two real parts of a hammer, the head and the handle. I will start from the handle and just kind of map it out. So I make basically a pivot point down at the bottom and draw down to that. And then I go along and I just join the bottom with the nodes that I've drawn. Make sure that they're all fitting in the same place. Don't want them kind of moving around too much. You can copy and paste them and just rotate them. This is just the rough drawing, so I'm not too worried about copying and pasting. Oh, missed one there. Move that there. And just continue doing that until I have the desired rough frames done. So the handle drop is kind of the easy part. So I'll start with that, obviously. And then eventually what you'll get is something that's slowly falling and then quickly picks up speed. And hits the ground. Make sure all of the perspectives are correct. I'm going to now map out how I'm going to have the head of the hammer. I'm going to use the same arc, the same guidelines as I did for the handle, but I'm just going to kind of distort them a little bit and play around with them. And then I've kind of got the four corners of the hammer head. So there are kind of tracks to work along. And the hammer is going to fall down through those tracks. Now you can go and do a cheat way and make like a transform tool on a shape layer. This is one method you can go with if you kind of really want to rush. But if you want to push yourself, There is no substitute for hand-drawn drawings. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing the hammerhead, and I'm going to kind of keep it to the guidelines. I want to keep this 3D, and we've got that nice graph that can allow us to kind of map that out. The hardest part of this drawing is to keep the faces of the hammer moving in perspective. This is a 3D object, so all of the faces that you see as it moves through 3D space are going to shift perspectives as this hammer falls down. Make sure that you're keeping your proportions correctly. It's just a simple figure. You shouldn't have to think too hard about it. Obviously, I am just warming up, so some of these drawings are a little sketchy, but we will get there, trust me. Moving along to the next frame, you can see the face of that hammer is slowly shying away, because basically what happens is the hammer's face will eventually kind of disappear onto a different perspective plane. You can run the curve of those tracks if you want, or you can keep the hammer head a strong kind of cube shape. I like to run with the nice beauty curves of an arc. That's kind of what I think makes great, beautiful, fluid animation. Make sure you're adding all the little bits. I've already roughed out some of it. Sometimes it's good to go back and kind of adjust the proportions and have a look at where you're going wrong, adjust that, and kind of move forward. So you can see I'm basically using those tracks now. We're getting to the last frame. And once I get to that last frame, I'm going to add a little bit of squash and stretch. So basically a little bit of a bump in the hammer. It's going to make it look like this hammer's hit the ground quite hard, gives it a little bit of impact. Squash and stretch is great for that. And then you have a little settle frame afterwards where the hammer actually expands and goes back to its relative size. So you can see there, it's just hitting the ground flat. What I need is one more frame after that where the hammer kind of lifts up and gets back to its normal shape. Like so. Now that's the beauty of animation, is you can kind of mess around with this. Obviously, in real life, a hammer wouldn't ever have any viscosity to it. Well, it would have a viscosity that is very, very dense. This is giving a little bit of squishiness to the hammer, adds a bit of character and makes the animation more fun and keeps it kind of squishy. So there you have it. That's the hammer test. Was that a bit of fun? The hammer test is a great way to warm up. It's a great way to show or quickly do some animation that doesn't really require too much thinking. Obviously the first few times you run through it, it will require a little bit more thinking. Just then I hadn't done that in a fair while, so it did take me a little bit as well, but you know, it's definitely a valuable lesson. So we'll see you next time on the Animation University. I hope you had a good time. Thanks, guys.